Well, Margaret Fortune, you are the future of public education in America, and therefore, you are the future of America. And I can honestly say that about every one of you. You are the mavericks changing our country for the better. Me, I'm a lowly supporter. All I do is politics, write some checks. It's so easy compared to what you do. I learned the hard way the work you do when I started a charter school in my own community, and that was 10 times harder than writing checks. Eventually, that school prospered, and both of my kids went there, and now they're off in college. So we are on a long journey together, a journey that will stress us, that will make us sad at times, happy at others, but a journey that's very profound, a journey of which we can make a real difference. Someday, every child in America will attend a school they love, and every teacher will work at a school they love. That is the promise of choice. We in this movement are pioneering that. We're revitalizing public education. So the challenge is not getting easier because society is changing itself and changing at an increasingly rapid rate. So let's talk a little about the future. You've all been reading about self-driving cars. They're somewhere between 5 and 10 years away until you get in a car here and say, drive me to Boston. And 8 hours later, you'll arrive rested and there, and safer. The promise of self-driving cars is that the driver doesn't fall asleep. The driver has 360 vision. The driver instantly reacts. The driver is better than you or me. Safer, smoother, and then we get to relax. Well, in one sense, that's great. Can't wait. But in another sense, what a big change to employment. Over 3 million people are involved in trucking around the United States. Many other millions are driving other vehicles. And that's just one small aspect of the next 20, 40, 50 years. Increased safety, increased productivity, lower prices, more affordability, and jobs changing. So think of what's going on as built on two trends. There's AI, where computers are getting better at synthesizing data and reacting in more human-like ways. And there's robotics, where machines are able to perform many of the control actions that it used to take a human to do physically. And you combine those, and you get a self-driving car. But you also get diagnosis in X-rays that's better than any human. You get many effects throughout society. So this change, all of its dimensions, you can call silicon. It's all derived from transistors and what can happen with silicon. But there's another change that's also happening, which is our DNA. We're learning in science how to improve and change our DNA so that we don't get certain diseases. And over the next 20 and 40 years, the DNA and our expectations about healthy DNA are going to change rapidly. 30, 40, 50 years from now, then we're going to find superhuman, amazing people. Everyone is going to be incredibly attractive and athletic and healthy and smart. Yeah, it's the superhuman days. It's coming. But where does that leave us? So think of the next 50 years as a race for what is the future of intelligence between silicon and carbon. And as silicon gets better, as AI gets better, it's going to work on DNA and improve the techniques for changing future human beings. And as carbon gets better and humans are smarter and better able to think about these things, that's going to generate better AI. So the two of these, over the next 50 years, will make the things that we find difficult now seem quite easy. So in one sense, great progress. In another sense, great stress on society. So how are our school districts set up to handle immense change in society? They're not. What is the fundamental structure of a school district? Well, you've got an elected school board. It's elected from the general public, and it changes, especially in large urban districts, pretty quickly. And so superintendents change quickly, and directions about how we're teaching change rapidly. So what we see in large urbans throughout America is a little bit of progress and then a reset. A little bit of progress and then a reset. And if you look back over 50 or 60 years, you say, wow, Chicago was one of the hot school districts 30 years ago. Houston was one of the hot school districts 30 years ago. Yeah, today Washington, D.C. is doing great, and that is fantastic that the school district here is doing well. But there's no large urban district that's continued to get better for 50 years in a row because of the elected school board. Many of you are in nonprofits. Few of you are also in for-profits. And if your board were generally elected by the public, then I think you too would experience rapid change of leadership, rapid change of direction. How does it work in a nonprofit? Well, in a nonprofit, as we get more board members, they're trying to make the organization better. They're not trying to flip-flop it. If you get on the board of your local Episcopal church, you're not trying to convert it to Unitarianism. Okay? And when you get on the board of Planned Parenthood, you're not trying to change it to become the Environmental Defense Fund. But that's what happens in school districts, because when you run in politics, what do you run on? Change. That's what gets you elected. And then if you got elected in an election where you had to raise $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, it's because you're capable and interested in politics. And if you're going to run in the future, then you better deliver change now. Doesn't matter really how well it's running. You better change something. That elected dynamic is what's hurting our school districts. We're the only nation on earth with local elected school boards. They're filled with good people for the most part, but they're trapped in a system that generates constant change and never allows the teaching staff to perfect one set of techniques, one approach, and to do well. Governance is the fundamental change with charter public schools, because all of you, your organizations, are trying to get better. Every 5 years, every 10 years, you're a little better than you were in the past. I've been on the board of KIPP charter schools for a little over 10 years now. They've grown from 80 schools to over 200. And what I've been most excited about is the rate of learning and improvement is increasing. We're learning more because there's more smart people in the organization saying, let's do this different. This works better if we do it this way. And they're able to absorb all those lessons and improve even faster. And all of you are doing the same thing, which is you're learning organizations with stable governance. Now, it doesn't mean that every charter school is great or every charter school has great governance. Some, of course, are chaotic. But for the most part, the ones that are great are growing. And so as long as the good ones grow and the great ones prosper, then the average throughout the movement will be incredible and well run. Now, when I say governance matters, if you think about democracy, you can think for a normal person just trying to eat, say, 200 or 300 years ago, what does democracy have to do with anything? And yet, when you get democracy in, you can get prosperity. It's the same thing with capitalism. It can feel pretty abstract, but because of it, you get great services, which then generate a tax base, which then generate public services. So if we get the governance right, all of the pedagogical work that we do will flourish. In addition, we have much less regulation. At least we're trying to keep it that way. And with much less regulation, that's because consumers choose, because parents choose. And with that flexibility, then there's room to try many things. There's some school charters in America, like Great Hearts, that really do the classics, and they don't do much technology. There's other networks that are big on technology. I think, actually, technology will play an increasing role, personalization in particular. And we will find, year after year, that how we use personalization gets better and better. The most famous case of personalization is Alexander the Great, who at age 15 got Aristotle as his personal tutor for high school. So he got to study directly with Aristotle for all those years, and then he went on to become the most accomplished leader of early Greek society ever. So personalization matters. We don't know how to deliver it one-to-one with people, but with software, with all of the AI that I was talking about, we have a chance. So year by year, if you've had a skeptical experience with online teaching, with various forms of interactivity, I encourage you just to wait and try it the next year and try it the next year, because all of that field is getting better. Now, it's getting better at certain precise tasks, like teaching science, history, math, things that clearly have a right and wrong answer. It will be a very long time before software and computers are role modeling good discussion behavior, are teaching poetry, are interpreting history. All the high value add things that we do as adults to help children prosper, that's going to be focused on the adults, and more of the relatively rote work will be able to be handled by software teaching children. So that's a little more in the near term. Now, we have some big political battles coming over the next couple years. As we grow, the resistance to what we're doing also grows. A few of the people resisting are just scared for their jobs. But for the most part, people who are resisting are because they have a certain view of the way a school district operates, and they like how it operates. They think that's a core part of America. Now, early in our history, in our agrarian history, elected school boards may have served the right purpose. But today, with our large concentrated cities with lots of people living, and the elected school boards we have, they're pretty clearly not working, with maybe the exception of high-end suburbia. Now, the challenge politically is you can't get rid of things. In general, people never vote to get rid of school boards. So what we do is we leave them as they are, good citizens, elected, but we grow the charter school sector so that most children get an incredible education at a charter school, like here in DC, where about 50% of the students choose the charter school. So city by city, state by state, we're trying to serve more children. Now, to the degree that the district improves because of the charter work or otherwise, that's great too. All of us celebrate the success of children in schools, independent of whether it's a district school or a charter school. Then we get the fun of competition. Think about how two universities compete. They compete for prestige and respect, but they don't try to kill each other. That's how we compete in the charter school sector. We are working all together so that more and more schools can be run by people who love working there and attended by students who love going to school there. Our future is in your hands. The growth and the tensions in the charter school movement are many, but you've got a lot of support. I know that I've been a supporter for more than 20 years, and I will be with you for another 20 and another 20, because it's going to take a long time. It's frustrating, but it's the reality. And you know, there's other good ideas that took a long time. Like, think about the basic idea behind democracy. One man, one vote. Kind of simple, not very controversial. And yet, at the founding of the United States, you might think, well, we have democracy, but only landed white males could vote. And it took another 50 years from our country's founding for poor white males to be able to vote. And then it took another 50 years and a civil war for African Americans to nominally be able to vote. And then it took another 50 years for women to be able to vote. And then another 50 years for African Americans to be able to vote in practice. That's how long it took for a simple idea like one person, one vote. So we have to recognize that human society changes slowly, but it does change. And together, we have the joy, the honor, and the excitement of changing our country for the better.